There are very few things in this world that sting worse than failure. Spending sometimes years of your life working toward some kind of goal or to become the type of person you always envisioned, only to find that all your work, your very life for that time, was just in vain. Failure can come in so many forms. Maybe you can't find or keep a job, didn't get into your dream school, failed to hold a relationship together, or maybe you actually achieved everything you ever wanted, yet somehow you're left empty and questioning the purpose of your life up to this point. Truth is, failure's just an essential part of living. I know people say that all the time, but most people say that you should embrace failure because it's on the road to success. It's true in a sense, but there is actually beauty in failure for itself. This impulse to spin it and make it just another part of a success story is just another way of trying to tell ourselves a story where we will someday move beyond failure and just have made it. But it really doesn't work that way. I mean, Kierkegaard talked about this. When we go through a kind of traumatic event where we view ourselves as failures or as something has happened to us that was outside of our control, anything from a breakup to being fired to whatever it is, something devastating. He urges us not to put our future happiness in the exact same thing that devastated us the first time, because that's not growth. That's not actually moving on. A classic example is people who can't stay out of a relationship. They have to jump from one to the other because in order to cope with the pain they feel during a breakup, they put their faith in finding another person because they say they think that that's the only way to feel better. But Kierkegaard shows us that you're just setting yourself up for more devastation later in the exact same form, and you haven't developed yourself, mentally and emotionally to feel differently or to understand it differently when it happens again. So every time it's going to feel unfair. Every time it's going to feel like you did something wrong or the world is doing something to you. So we should actually look at failure in a different way than just trying to get out of how it feels when it happens. Because we always end up back in the same place. A place where we wonder how things went so wrong again. This has happened to me time and time again. From relationships to jobs to school to living in different cities, I've changed my circumstances several times, always telling myself that I just needed this new thing, this other way of living, these new people, this new place. But I wasn't changing. My circumstances were changing, and sometimes that would make me feel better for a time, feel more fulfilled, feel like I had more going on, but I always ended up back in the same place where I didn't know who I was or what I wanted. So new circumstances aren't going to live your life for you. And if you place your faith in that, you'll just end up back in the same place where you feel powerless. As Nietzsche noted, there's nothing more paralyzing to the human than believing your purpose and efforts have been in vain, especially for years of your life. And it isn't a coincidence that thinkers like him turn to poetry forms to express how to navigate these types of things. It's because poetry can do something nothing else can. You see, poetry isn't just consoling or helpful because it sounds nice or shifts a perspective, but because it quite literally says things that can't be said directly. Concrete definitions, mathematical proofs, scientific facts, none of these things can map onto what it feels like to actually fail. What failure really is in the context of human life, or how we might learn to relate to it. Poetry has, since the dawn of civilization, been the ground on which we have built our relationship with the world. That is why in this video, we will explore how to overcome or learn to relate with failure in our life in a consistent sense through the poetry of Charles Bukowski. I chose to cover Bukowski for this because he speaks to a lot of more modern issues, or at least he speaks more to the modern person than some of the older, more fancy-sounding poetry that we might get. Bukowski's raw, and what we need today is something to help us cut through all the noise that we have to sift through in this modern type of world, to kind of get to the core of ourselves and relate to the world outside of all that sort of junk. Before we dive into some Bukowski, though, I'd like to ask for your support on this channel. We recently took a bit of a break because, well, life just became busy and we're not really getting very much love from the algorithm. It's really hard to get going on here, and it just gets harder the longer we go without seeing a real breakout. If you enjoy this video, or any of our videos, just be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you share your thoughts in the comments, it helps us learn more about what types of videos you'd like to see. We also do have a YouTube channel members section with some members-only videos if you are interested in that. I imagine anyone listening to this has found themselves at one time or another in these moments where it seems like the world stopped, opened up, and just dropped you into this intense moment where you feel like you just don't know what to do or where to go next in life. It's like the story you were living falls apart and it feels like you're worthless, like the whole world is getting along just fine, but you just can't hack it. I'd like to share Bukowski's poem Snake Eyes. Here we'll see a man in an honest struggle with these moments where it seems like we are nothing but a failure. It was not a good day. There was a jagged wretchedness inhabiting my part of the world. And now I sit at this machine tonight, hoping for some luck with some light. But they refuse to fire. Things refuse to fire. Wagner on the radio is grand, but whatever was born in me today has been stamped out, tossed away. I don't ask for your sympathy during this twilight of the gods. I am just speaking to myself, and this is the medium through which I speak. Still, if somebody reads this, and your day and your night were akin to mine, then somehow we've touched, strange brother or sister, and we both understand that death is not the tragedy. You are alone and I am alone, and it's best that we weren't together, comparing our pitiful sorrows. Only let me sit before this tired machine, strange friend, and write this final, dull line. Thank you for reading this far. I really like this poem for a couple of reasons. Now, a more minor one that's still important is what you see Bukowski getting to here and saying he's just writing to himself, but yet if someone reads it, he feels inspired and touched by this, all the same. This is part of understanding how to have a better relationship with our pursuits in life and with failure, because what the majority of what we see, obviously with social media and society broadly, is people wanting to be someone who has accomplished a certain thing or has a certain title. For instance, even if you want to say, be a poet, be a writer. When people start, or when they see this displayed, they want to be someone who is a poet or is a writer and has written great things. That's very different than being someone who writes great things, right? All of these people who have pursued these passions and become like truly, one of a kind, or someone who'll be remembered, it's because they do it every day. They put thousands and thousands of hours in it. And if your goal is to just be someone who has that title, that's not going to push you through thousands of hours, right? That's not you actually having a relationship with the thing. That's you just wanting to have the title. And we do that with relationships, we do that with jobs, we do it with everything. We want the story of what it represents and what that representation kind of looks like to us and the happiness it's supposed to give us. But it comes in the process. It's always in the day to day. So the next time you think you want to become this or that, or whatever it is you want to pursue, think, what would this be like to do this every single day and not do it for the recognition, not do it for the accolade or the accomplishment, not do it to have this title and be this type or this archetype, but just to do it day in and day out. If you can find something like that you do it for the sake of itself not some other thing, that will be the place where you might learn to embrace failure, because it's the thing that'll allow you to continue to get better at and keep doing that thing that you're passionate about, or that you just enjoy day in and day out. Something I've been trying to learn is how to be more present in my life. I know that's generic sounding, but it is a real problem for all of us. Being stuck in the future and the past. I've come to realize both through more life experience and my studies in philosophy just how impactful it can be to start seeing your life for what it is, instead of always projecting your happiness out past some milestone. I'm not going to sit here and say you need to learn to live in the moment and be totally spontaneous, or anything like that. But there is a middle ground where life is really meant to be lived. Being able to let go of your old self and being receptive to new things is like having a key to a million new doors, new experiences, chances, opportunities. Just all those things we really want in life. Bukowski knew as well as anyone that the power of being able to ground yourself in the moment and start again. After all, he did have to drag himself from the depths of alcoholism and cynicism to keep writing and trying until it finally paid off. His poem, This Moment, expresses this beautifully. Forget it. It's a farce. The great actors, the great poets, the great statesmen, the great painters, the great directors, the great loves. It's a farce, a farce, a farce. History and the recording of it. Forget it. Forget it. You must begin all over again. Throw all that out. All of them out. You are alone with now. Look at your fingernails. Touch your nose. Begin. The light flings itself upon you. There's a depth to this poem that isn't immediately recognizable, but it's there, which is that, and I don't mean this as a mental hack or a gimmick to, some kind of self-help gimmick. Genuinely what Bukowski is expressing, which is emulated by several people, Nietzsche and Kierkegaard included, but also others, is a level of freedom that comes in recognizing what you are and what the world is, in the sense that we tell ourselves these stories, both in big historical stories about all of us, countries, the world, man as an animal, and anthropology, those kinds of stories. And we also tell ourselves personal stories about where we come from. And we do that so that it can help tell us where we're going, where we should go. But every time we do that and attach ourselves to some origin in the past, some role that we are born from, it can be helpful. It can feel good. You can feel prideful about where you come from, and it can help give you some content to your personality and what you might want to be. But that cuts you off from essentially an immense, essentially infinite wellspring of possibility. You could quite literally be anyone, right? Sounds impractical, because sure, there are physical barriers to being anything. But all options are open. History, your family, notions of the type of person you are and what that type of person should or shouldn't do, type of job they should or shouldn't work. It's all fickle. It's all been created by someone who wanted that to be the case. And every time we let any of those narratives sort of live through us, they cause immense problems for us. They cause us to have shame. They cause us to have pride in things we didn't earn. Right? So listen to Bukowski, I think, because it's helped me. It's not perfect, but it's a start to be able to sit with yourself and have an idea of who and what you are without any stories from somewhere or someone else. No stories about your, if you can suspend temporarily your ethnic, religious, national, personal background and just think, well, what am I? And what do I want? without any of those things speaking at all, just through ourselves. It's at that point that you can start to take small steps forward in a way that's truly you. And then you might recognize these moments of failure as just chances to start again, perhaps. Chances to touch life for what it is and not live in a fiction, a story. I don't know. I'd like to know what you guys think, though, because I think a lot of this has helped me, but I certainly haven't reached any kind of place where I can just outright say there's some kind of solution to it. But the bottom line, I think, is that failure is a necessary part of life and it's not going anywhere. So we need to learn how to live with it and maybe, perhaps, even love it. So yeah, please express yourself in the comments, because I really would like to know what you guys think, because this is a difficult topic. Also, be sure to make suggestions in the comment section about life topics that you guys want to perhaps hear me talk about, because in this series on life philosophy, we're trying to take, instead of covering directly sort of philosophers and concepts and then trying to tie that to life, we want to pick a relevant, practical life topic and then tie in the sort of relevant thinkers and ideas that we think can help with that topic. So with that, it'd be best to know what you guys would like covered, what type of life struggles and concepts you'd like to, hear some of this information about.